everybody. Hello, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Michelle Garcia. I'm the editorial director of NBC BLK. It's a news division under NBC News, and I'm here with the amazing co-founders, of Group Black. How great. We got to clap it up for them. Come on, clap it up. We've entered happy hour slightly early over here on the stage. I will stay sober, but I guess we are getting lubricated in order to share our stories, which is what you guys do so beautifully. Okay, Rich, I'm gonna start with you. There it is. Okay, I'm starting with you. I've heard this story involves brunch. Can you tell us the story of how Group Black came together?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for joining us and for doing this, and thank everybody in here for participating. These guys know how to throw a party, don't they? Yeah?
Yes.
I mean, you come to ad week and this breaks out. No, Group Black came about at a time where we were all dealing with quite a few really, one was COVID, so we're in the midst of COVID. And we all had a lot of time on our hands to think about what we were gonna do post-COVID. What was COVID going to mean to us, what it meant to our families, what it meant to our businesses, what it meant to our communities. And I think everybody, not just us up here, but you guys out there, we're all sort of starting to think about what the future was going to look like. What was a post-COVID world going to look like, if there was a post-COVID world? Because for a minute there, it didn't look so good. And I've spent my life building businesses around investment in Black communities and how we leverage business to drive equity in our communities, how we create value through those businesses that we can invest back in our communities. And so that was heavy on my mind as I was recovering from COVID. We then had the extremely distressing and disturbing and disgusting and everything that you can think about murder of George Floyd. And all of a sudden, a realization that we in our communities have had for as long as there's been Black people in this country, that our white counterparts and partners and friends and adversaries and peers and neighbors really seemed for the first time absorbed the enormous inequities that we face here. And in particular, went from sort of the social and the physical to the business. And everybody was trying to figure out, well, how do we correct this? And how do we make a dent in this? And I wish that level of interest and momentum had continued to carry forward. But what it did do was bring a sense of awareness and a sense of acknowledgement, and sparked action. And so I think we then found ourselves in a world or in a place where people that weren't necessarily talking to each other over time, or maybe talking past each other, or maybe not fully grasping what the inequities were. But I think more than that, not fully grasping what the true opportunities were to be supportive of building Black businesses and thereby creating an even broader participation for black people in the economy. So all of that was swirling around. Very serious time. And I get a call from these two guys having brunch in Miami. and they too had been thinking about these issues and about what it would take to actually put a dent in these issues and create a sustainable model that could not just provide value to the marketplace, but that could also create opportunities beyond the business for our community. And so I'll let Travis tell the rest of the story because I wasn't at brunch. All I can tell you is he told me that they had this idea. The conversation lasted all but not even 2 minutes. It's like, I got this idea, this is what I want to do. I'll let him tell the idea. And at the end of the first sentence or two, I said, I'm in, count me in, let's go do it. And that's what we did. So I'll pass it on to you.
You've been queued up, Travis.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was probably 60 seconds, but that was it. I think the spirit, what was unique about the time when Bonin and I were having that conversation was for the first time we saw corporate America having a real conversation about what the issue, right? There was an acknowledgement of the 0.5%. There was an acknowledgement that it needed to change, and there was a lot of corporates saying we need to do something differently. Now, it manifested itself in the form of pledges, right? And what we knew and what was the basis of the brunch, well, it kind of went there. But I didn't say, Bonin, let's have brunch so we could talk about the corporate America. But it went from a conversation, level of excitement about the fact that corporate America was acknowledging this issue, but then it went to a conversation about concern, right? Because what we knew at the time was that because of lack of investment historically, a lot of the companies that sit in the black-owned media space don't have the resources to be able to deliver at a certain scale. And so if you wake up tomorrow and say, I haven't spent it with you for 2 decades, but I want to spend with you in troves now, how could you expect that person to be ready for it? And so our deal was simple, but we wanted to provide access, right? 3 things: provide access, provide infrastructure, and invest, right? And we viewed those as the core things that were required in order for dollars to start to move in a meaningful way, after both having the conversations with the brands a lot of the brands that are now in our collective, but also talking to the marketers as well about what needed to be done. So started as this kind of a simple a manifestation of the kind of the environment we were in, and I'm very proud of where the initiative has gone today.
Yeah. I mean, the foresight is really something because, we're black folks. We know we're sitting in that moment, and I'm sure as each of you did, as you mentioned, excuse me, concern was like, is this going to last? Yeah. How can we make sure that it does? How can we enforce, this future, which is, the topic of this very panel. Travis, and then I'll open it up to both of you too. I'm curious to know, in the somehow 2 years, amazingly, you've done so much in 2 years. What have been some of the ups and downs in, some of the incredible storytelling you've been? Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Can I take that?
Go ahead.
I can tell you that we had no idea how fucking hard it was going to be. Right?
Excuse me.
Even to today, because when you think about what was absent, right? Infrastructure was absent, right? Funding was absent, all right? Cooperation and collaboration between our different businesses, right? Because I always say, black kids grow up navigating scarcity, and white kids grow up navigating abundance, right? And black businesses grow up navigating scarcity. And so all of a sudden, this marketplace was talking about all the things that they were going to do, and nobody had any tools or resources to go access those things. So even if you wanted to test and say, is it real? There was nothing to test it with, right? And so and then when you get into it, there are all the challenges of running a business, right? Then there's the challenges of trying to scale a business, right? And then there's the challenges of just trying to compete in a marketplace that has been focused on disabling your ability to compete, right? So I think, you know, the realization of not just that black businesses didn't get investment, but the up close and personal realization with both our corporate partners and ourselves, and I'm sure we're not the only business that experiences, that moment when your corporate partner is sitting across the table from you, having every intention to support you and having every intention to deliver on what their promises were, when they realize that their organization has no ability to deliver it, right? That their organization has every single barrier that maybe somebody constructed intentionally. You can be the sort of the pessimist and say that, or you can be the optimist and say, hey, these things developed and evolved this way. But at the end of the day, that realization of how powerful the lack of understanding and the lack of infrastructure and the lack of support and the internal policies and processes and structures made it very, very difficult for people to be able to actually live up to those promises. And then same thing on our side of the table, made it very hard. Now, these are the guys that navigated it. I'm just telling you
What you heard?
I saw. I'll let them tell you how they
Yeah,
navigated
I
it.
haven't heard from you yet. Let's chat.
No, go. I know Travis was eager. I'll say one thing. First of all, what's up, Advertising Week? How are you? Are you good? Are you good? We got happy hour. We see Robin in the back. You know, before I say this, this has been the most interesting ride of my life, and it has probably been one of the most difficult rides of my life, but one of my most proudest. And part of the reason why I'm proud is because at that brunch was my dad. And this is his birthday, or would have been his birthday week. He would have been 96.
Wow.
But yeah, and he got to see the birth of this thing literally from its inception. And so, you know, it makes me proud of that and excited. But from my point of view, this what's the hardest thing? Everything is the hardest thing. Well, you can go into detail, but I think for me, one of the hardest pieces have been the perception. So I can tell you, when we started this, we were in Cannes, and my team had sent out emails setting up meetings. And one of those people they sent out meetings to saw me and said, hey, I know we need to meet. Now, I didn't even send the email, I don't even know, but we need to meet. They go, but I just want to make sure that it's not charity, that it's actually going to drive the business. And I've been doing this my entire life, and this industry knows who I am and what I've accomplished. To me, I had to walk away. It was so insulting that there was a perception that I would do anything that wasn't going to drive the business. And that's the narrative that we face, which is that we're doing this to be good. The reality is this is the only growth market this industry has. And we're doing it to actually drive the business, and we're going to be the best at it. And so to me, that narrative is the thing that, and when I see articles written that slightly continue to try to push that narrative, it's like, where's this industry at, guys? Like, what are we really doing here? Sorry, Travis.
No, you're gonna good. I'm saying. No, I to echo these guys, every part of it has been hard, and I think, you know, one of the things that I didn't realize that we were gonna be tasked with when we started this. So it was like building infrastructure, creating access, but it was having these really crucial conversations and real serious conversations often, right? Because there's oftentimes when we want to see change, like there's this kind of unspoken thing that needs to be said. And we feel the responsibility to to have those conversations, because we know if we don't have conversations about whether it's folks doing well or not, then we won't see real change. And what I will say is, like, I think what my partners here talked about in the beginning of this, in their pieces, we're talking about getting it started up and getting it off the ground and building it out and what we didn't know, and then, you know, the perception, which I think we've been changing. But even when you think it's going well, there's mid-flight turbulence, right? And I'll say something specific, and it might be a little triggering, but we're gonna go there, right?
Love it.
Affirmative action,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
When the Supreme Court made their decision about affirmative action, it was such a ripple effect throughout the industry. All of a sudden, all corporates were questioning, should these commitments stay, right? And so we're making so much progress, right? 200% growth, right, and we're seeing. And then all of a sudden, when we're making progress, it's like, should we be doing this anymore, right? And that was something that you could never expect. And so what I was excited by was, although it was a setback, it wasn't a step back.
Right.
And what I mean by that is, I saw a lot of our partners, right, brands and agencies said, this is something important to us, not because whatever happens at the Supreme Court, but it's because it's a great growth opportunity for our business, and we see growth here for these reasons, right? We fundamentally believe that supporting this ecosystem is going to allow us to connect with our consumer more authentically. Yeah. They've already been working with us, right? And we have we have all the receipts on all the great work that a lot of these companies here have done, right? And so, although it created a bump in the road for us to have conversation, and I did see it, you saw like a little bit of a swirl, but then we resumed. Right, and I think we're back back at the point in the industry where we're having productive conversations again, and we're on growth mode again. But you don't expect these things, right? Like, you know, I woke up, had some orange juice, and then Supreme Court, boom. And I was like, oh, like, you don't expect it, and those are some of the challenges that we face.
You know, I was actually going to ask about this, because this is something that my reporters, we are actually actively covering it. We just ran a story about this yesterday, and about like this recoiling of interest in some, not obviously, not everywhere, but you know, like, oh, maybe we shouldn't mention DEI, maybe we shouldn't mention, you know, this is a program for Black employees, lawsuits, you know, VC funds getting kind of the scrutiny. And I'm wondering, like, the work that you guys do, how the companies that have actually stuck to their commitments, like, you kind of already got there a little bit, but I'd be curious to know, like, what do you see as their benefit? Like, how are they benefiting by sticking to these commitments?
So could I say it in Bonin? Because these while I think the commitments and George Floyd and all of that it created a moment for them to learn. Yeah. And now those companies that are continuing to invest and invest even more with us are companies that are understanding the power of this category. Like, I look at this space as emerging media. Like, when folks wanted to move dollars into social, right? They tested it, they learned, they figured it out, and when the ones that jumped in first and figured it out, they got market share. Right? This is the same thing with this category. They're figuring out, so there's brands like P&G, that's it. They look at multicultural as a huge growth opportunity. Right? Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of growth there. Bonin, I know you're going to probably, what do you want to say?
I was going to say the same thing. No. But I think it's interesting because I use the example too of, but he used social media. Can tell you the age difference. I always say when they went from radio to television. And so anyway, P&G.
You're not that old. Come on.
P&G, I feel like it. You should be on our team calls. No. But P&G created a competitive advantage by investing where they knew the consumer was, but nobody else was investing, and that's exactly the opportunity. But I think these commitments, it's been veiled in like a social piece. Like I always say, some people care about this, everybody cares about this. Like, let's stop having I don't need you to do what's right. I need you to do what's the opportunity that's right in front of you right now. But I need you to do it in the right way. So stop taking money out of our community without putting money back into our communities. So the importance of Black-owned media is that we're going to build the infrastructure for you to reach this consumer, but you need to invest in us in order for us to build that infrastructure to continue to grow. If I told you there was a consumer that had $1.7 trillion worth of spending and you only index 10%, you say, where's this mythical consumer? Guess what? That's the African-American consumer. I know people heard me say this. But if we did that, if we invested in those businesses at the same rate for the last 20 years, that would be $17 trillion worth of GDP. So the point is stop taking and start investing so we can all win. And then I'll worry about this, and you just focus on this. That's all I'm saying.
Oh my goodness. Love it. I mean, it is incredible when you think about that, like the impact that just a couple of years of funding and attention can have on Black businesses and the way that it can pull everybody up, like, is this
But
like, yeah, go ahead.
There's the part that pulls everybody up, right? And we've got to acknowledge that and respect that. But we've also got to remember how much harm was done prior to now.
Yes.
Right? And how much harm is being done right now.
Right.
So I'll give you an example. You got a media buyer X has not, and that's why I said the moment that people realize just how deficient or how inefficient their models are, and so you want to help a company, right? You want to give them opportunities, okay? So we're shifting from helping to now we're going to give opportunities, but you haven't given them opportunities for, you've given them opportunities over the past 3 years. They come, they demonstrate an ability to deliver what you want. The most you ever spent with this company was $100,000, $200,000. Now you want to spend $5 million. How are they going to absorb that, right? They go out, they borrow money, they take on investors, they build the infrastructure to support this $5 million. 2 years later, you're like, market's not so great. What you've done is you've now taken somebody who was barely surviving. You gave them a lot of hope and a year of some good business. They went out and levered their business or diluted their business. And then you're walking away from it, right? Or you're scaling it back down to where it was or a little bit more than where it was. And so I think the consciousness of the partners that really want to take advantage of the economic opportunity without destroying the fabric of our business and ecosystem needs to be thinking about whether, regardless of what's happening in the immediate environment, we've got to take 5.5, 10.5, 15.5, 20, and I say half because people's fiscal calendars mate, right? But we've got to be taking long-term views, making long-term investments, and it's only through that long-term view will you be able to change the structures that are inside of these. Or you can't take a business that is doing $5 million, $10 million a year, even $20 million a year, $40 million a year, right? Small businesses compared to standards, take service from them and pay them in 280 days. It doesn't work, right? These companies just don't have the capital. They don't have the access to the finance. Now, they do that in the broader marketplace, right? But those companies have access to financing to be able to withstand that time frame, right? Now you got somebody who went out and borrowed a ton of money or diluted themselves, and now they've got to carry your receivables or your payables on their receivables for 90 days, 120 days. A lot of damage gets done that way, right? So I think we've now got to move into this place of where we're having these very, very real structural conversations. The hype is over, the realization is over. Now it's time to actually do the work. It's time to look at how we do business together. It's time to look at the infrastructures that are put in place, the structures that are put in place, and make the adjustments so that we can have these businesses functioning 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now, and continuing to grow and not have this spike and then this drop.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that in my job, the thing that I've been really enjoying is really seeing the fact that like we are everywhere. Black people are everywhere. We do everything. We consume media. We are readers. We are viewers, and we find solace in Black-owned media and in things that we make too. You know. So I'm wondering, like, just your thoughts on why, like, the importance of that.
Don't confuse reach with resonance. Mm-hmm. So the reality is, look, I didn't really understand this until this journey. The reality is, and again, I'm going to use an old ass example, so don't make fun of me.
Love it.
You mean TV and radio?
TV and radio. You know who I'm talking to. Look, P&G learned this really early. In the 50s, NBC could reach every single female, but it couldn't resonate with them. They actually created a genre that connected with women. And that's what resonated, and that's what unlocked that consumerism. And we see it today. Black Panther is a great example. We've been making Marvel movies forever. You put a black cast, we see that it's for us, and that unlocks the consumerism. And so that's the point, is that the reason why they gravitate to us is because we create good programming with our people that showcase our cultural relevance. And so that's, I'll pass it off, but I would just be careful about reach versus resonance, and that's the real difference.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And it's like, as a consumer, you know the difference. You know, like it's like, you could just put a bunch of people, Black people, in a thing, and then it doesn't necessarily mean that it resonates with us, you know. But like, when you know that something is being made with care for you, like that's something like really intentional, and you know, it feels special.
Like you open a whole can of worms. I don't know how much time we have.
Oh no.
And I don't know, because I'll have a question for you and those of you that work in sort of the Black targeted world as opposed to the Black owned world, right? During the past, you know, let's call it these past 2 years or 3 years here, we've seen not just Black owned media try to stand up and try to compete, but we've seen Black targeted, non-Black owned media grow astronomically. I think if you go back and do the math, Black targeted has grown more than Black owned, right? And it has certainly taken more share, right? And so that reach versus resonance becomes a competitive advantage that Black owned media needs to lean on, right? Because we're going to create it better for you. And the other thing is, when this wave is over, right, those companies are going to go back to who they serve. And if we don't do it right, we're going to have a decimated pool of Black-owned media that won't have the ability to create the resonance, right? So we're in a very dangerous time.
So we've been talking about, and you know, I'll pick up on what Rich is saying. So we've been talking about where Black-owned media has been, but I think this says the future. Right, so we're gonna, like, I think one of the things that is, as I look at the future of Black-owned media, and what I'm focused on for our collective, connected to this specific thing, is the first 2 years for us has been about how do we start to fill the cars with gas, right? And then the second piece now is how do we build the roads for the cars to drive? What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is we have seen some of the most resonant content come from this collective, right, and creators. We have seen how it really resonates, how when brands connect with our collective and the creators, how it's driving business outcomes. The next piece is scale, right? And so we're talking about resonance at scale, right? And so what we're focused on is like how do we map this to very competitive pipes? Those pipes that allow us to have scale. And for example, the partnership that we did with NBC,
Right.
the partnership that we did with Disney, our ability to take diverse content from diverse creators and put it on really big pipes makes it such that the buy should be just because it's a great buy in a great place and it's competitive. It shouldn't be just because we shouldn't even be having conversations about it's like minority owned in a couple years. It should be that it's just really, really good. And so that's kind of how when we're thinking about the next wave of the build for the business, it's to combat that retracting behavior, right? It's to be able to say every single business in this category needs to compete against every other large company out there, and needs to have the platform, infrastructure, tools, and environment to be able to do so.
And today, you know, the reality is we are. She's trying to grab you. We are one of the largest. But you know, today, if you want to reach a black audience, we are the best platform to make that happen for you. We can reach any black audience you need. That's us. But I will say to that point, which is the continued driver of scale, and again going back, just like P&G and NBC did, we're doing now with NBC, and that to me is, you know, where. And creating competitive products that compete against anything in the marketplace, regardless of who owns it. And that's where I think, you know, marketers need to begin to step back and look at, if you're going to unlock this value, how do you do it with products that can really unlock that value at scale?
Yeah. I really about this, something that I'm also thinking about is like the way that Black-owned media is embracing our intersectionality and like how our communities look. And I think one of the things that I really love about your projects is that you embrace that intersectionality, and I'm wondering like how you approach that and how do you celebrate that in your work? Like talking about different marginalized communities within the Black community.
You want to go ahead?
Go ahead.
So I think we talk about it in the way we kind of have like a show don't tell kind of methodology. So even if you're sitting in this room, right, like we don't have to really tell folks that culture wins, or when we show up at Canada, we literally just show up in the way that we always do, and we highlight the artists, the creators, we highlight athletes, and we just show it, right? And when people walk in, we get like, this feels different, right? And it is because it is authentic, right? And you could feel that there is a certain level of energy and excitement around it. And some folks might have heard me say this before, but I just fundamentally believe that inclusion is the biggest business opportunity today, right? And if you look at some different examples, like he talked about Black Panther. Let's talk about Encanto, right? Encanto was such a breakthrough in animated film, right? When they put those products on the shelf, and because it was such an authentic representation of the culture, and when they put those, it was so authentic. When they tried to produce the toys for Encanto, toy manufacturers couldn't produce that many shades of brown, like because they never had to.
Of course.
Right? And so it's just interesting to see that, you know, we're starting to move to an era where it's those details, right? Like everybody's like, oh no, that content's right if you resonate with that. Yeah. And you're starting to see across not just Black, but all groups, more authentic representation in media works, right? And when there's diversity in media ownership, it helps that particular effort. And so that's what we push for in everything that we do.
Yeah, and the thing that I would sort of add to that is that we're not trying to build something for somebody else. We're trying to build something for us, right? We're not trying to be, we're not trying to represent somebody else. We're trying to represent us. We're trying to represent our communities, and you know, we as a community are very, very diverse. And so our best work, our best experiences, the things that we tend to leave behind as a community come from very different thought patterns and very embracing the diversity within our own community, right? I think is what Group Black has done masterfully.
Yeah.
Right? It's like every type of Black is represented. Every type of brown is represented. And it's not, hey, let's go find this or that or the other. It came together organically because of who the organization is, what its mission was, who these two guys are. And so I think that authenticity shows through, and as a result, the work turns out in that same fashion, right? Yeah. And there's no compromise on what the mission is, where we're headed, but there's also no compromise on how excellent the people and the team need to be in order for us to deliver it, because we are competing against the best. So we have to have the best, right? And we have to create an environment and an opportunity for the best to succeed. And so that I think is probably more than any of the strategic thinking is how we get to that.
Are you saying we're the best?
I didn't say you were the best.
That's what I heard.
That doesn't happen in the boardroom.
No.
I'll let you know that.
No, that's true. That's true. Because I think that's the other thing is, and I'm glad you bring that up, because, you know, Black excellence has become a marketing line and a slogan, right? Yeah. For us to truly achieve, it can't. You know, my nephew graduated from college, and he was very excited. So and I said, dude, that's what you're supposed to do. I don't know what you want from me. Right? That's what you're supposed to do, right? But when you set that level of expectation, then graduating from college isn't a destination.
Right.
It's a part of the journey, right? And so for us, it's, we want to be the best. We want to measure up against the best. And to be honest with you, because of that diversity of thought, I think we can be the best.
Yeah. Okay, so we're down to the end, basically. I have one last question, but this has been really fun. Okay, I think, you know, we've talked about scaling, you know, this as being the next part of what you guys, of your work, combating the recoiling, you know, of some places, some companies' interest, and like trying to continue building the infrastructure to help Black-owned media and stuff like that. I'm curious, like, what do you see as like the next like, well, you know, you're just talking about a journey. Like, what is the next part of your journey as Group Black?
So, you know, it's interesting. I was just talking about Bonin and kind of thinking about what I see, not just for Group Black, but kind of my broader thought of Black-owned media as a whole.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to see a period of, we're going to see a period of mass collaboration, not mass consolidation, right? And what I mean by that is we're starting to see the Black-owned media ecosystem acknowledge that they're stronger together, right? Let me give you some examples. So if you saw what Diddy just talked about just the other day, like Diddy is partnering with other Black-owned media firms, and they're putting things together, and they're trying to grow and build stronger, bigger products. We saw what, this is out there. Like we have joined forces with Shaq and 50 and Kenya Barris to buy BT, right? Like it's about, we're just thinking about like, hey, if we come together and partner, can we do something special, something that's never been done? And what's exciting to me is I kind of think that Group Black started that.
That was our DNA.
Right?
Yeah,
like
that
in the
was our
beginning, we
DNA.
said, let's build a collective and let's do that.
Yeah.
And what we're starting to see now is a lot more individuals, whether they're a part of Group Black or not, start to do that. And so that is my prediction. We will continue to do that. We are very, very collaborative people, and so we're always looking for an opportunity to partner with folks. That's just in our DNA. That's, right? Like this is even the nature of our partnership is that. But I think that's going to be the case, and I think what we're going to see is folks continue to do really big moves, trying to figure out how do we build collectively more infrastructure under this category. And personally, I love to see it, right? I love to see that there can't just be, Rich always says this, there can't just be one, right? It can't just be Group Black. It has to be others too. And so I love to see that we're starting to, as a community, as a category, move in ways that feels a little bit different from a couple years ago.
Yeah. What about you, Rich? Or Bonin?
No, they're telling us to rap, so I was gonna.
You were gonna rap.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm good.
You sure?
I think I said enough.
I think
Again, stuff that you never hear in the boardroom. That's my new Instagram. But I know are you sure you don't?
Go ahead.
Will y'all wrap up?
Okay, I was just gonna say, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to the entire team at Group Black who makes this happen. I would start naming names. I'm looking at a bunch of faces, but if I forget one, I will never live it down. So I don't want, because that means, so I would be here naming the whole company just to make sure that I cover CYA. But I just really want to say they work tirelessly to make sure that this experience is the best in quality, but more importantly, that it truly feels like a home for every single one of you. And I did also want to just thank every single one of you for being so supportive, coming to all of our events, and enjoying each other, and really, truly coming out for Group Black. And then the last thing I wanted you to hear is that this is a very special moment, because this is actually the first time that the three of us have been on stage as admitted co-founders. Now, we did this 2 years ago when I couldn't come out and say that I was a co-founder. Right? So this is the first time. That was also at Advertising Week as well, but this is the first time that all three of us have actually been on stage together as admitted co-founders. So anyway.
It's been
Go
2
ahead.
years.
It's been two. It's been 2
Well,
years
look at
now.
that.
2.5. Michelle, go ahead.
It's been lovely. This is great. Thank you so much for chatting, for being together, out together as a group. And yeah, thank you everybody for coming.